All right, I wanted to go over some of the mistakes that students make when they start writing an open ended essay. The first mistake that students make, and you will see that in the sample essay Z, is that they don't talk about the meaning of the work as a whole. They list incidents in the book. They might even have some analysis, making judgments about the events in the book, but they won't actually get to a universal theme. Next, all summary. That's another problem. And you see that in SAC. A lot of summary, never linking to any broader concept. The passive voice, we'll do more work on that later, but the passive voice occurs when the person doing the action it comes in the object position. So here's an example of it. The king is told by Creon. That's the passive voice because we use this is told construction. A more active structure is Creon tells the king. Not a big deal, but a bit of a pet peeve. Avoid informal pronouns like I, me, you, and us. Try not to say I think, I believe, I feel. Just give us the analysis. AP stands for answer the prompt. You have to link to the prompt in every paragraph. You have to link to characters, mysterious origins, or relationship to the past, and that meaning of the work as a whole in every paragraph that you can. Use the present tense when summarizing action in a narrative. Don't say that Tiresias told Oedipus that he is the killer. Say Tiresias tells Oedipus that he is, the killer. Don't praise the literature. It's good. I know. Everyone knows. We wouldn't have you write about it if it wasn't good. So don't praise the literature. It's not a big deal if you do, but it's just needless. Needless. So next up is number 8. Do not summarize events in the story without at least suggesting which part of the assigned task your summary will address first. In particular, your topic sentences. You need to use very precise topic sentences that clearly tie into one of the tasks of the prompt. You do this to avoid launching into long retellings of the story where the purpose of doing so is merely implied. So take a look at your topic sentences and make sure that they are making claims that need evidence to be proved. A really bad topic sentence would be something like Oedipus starts the play by trying to find the killer of Laius. That's like not an appropriate topic sentence. It is just going to launch into a long retelling of the story. Number 9, you're going to need multiple points of analysis to get into the higher scores, no matter how well written your paper is. This means that your analysis can't just be like one point that you're drilling and killing to the end. There should be some complexity to your understanding of the play. It should not be overly simplistic, and your paragraph should serve to build into a deeper understanding or analysis of the play. This is why themes such as ignorance is bliss are maybe just a little bit too simplistic. The intro needs to serve a purpose. It doesn't need to do much, but it definitely needs to introduce the title and the author and whatever meaning of the work as a whole that you are claiming. That said, sample G here, although it is a high scoring paper, the thesis actually doesn't suggest the meaning of the work as a whole. So even though I'm claiming that that's like a required part of the intro, you can technically get away with it as long as your conclusion has a pretty clear statement of the meaning of the work as a whole. But it is better to start off writing an A paper than to like accidentally fall into an A paper at the very end. Avoid inaccuracies, of course, but how do you know it's an inaccuracy if you actually believe that something that is wrong is right? So I don't know what you're going to do. Try to avoid cliches and dead metaphors. If it's a idiomatic expression that has been used too often, try to avoid it. You want to have lots of textual references, and your details in this essay should be about the investigation of Oedipus and not so much the backstory. You can talk a little bit about the backstory, about defeating the Sphinx and Oedipus talking to the oracle and his journey to Thebes. That's fine to talk about it a little bit, but your entire essay should not be entirely about the pre-story to Oedipus. Oedipus is about the investigation where a person discovers his relationship to his past and the truth of his mysterious origin. Oedipus is not, the play Oedipus Rex or Oedipus the King is not about Oedipus being born to Laius and then being sent to Mount Kithaeron to be killed and then traded to Polybus and then going to the oracle to find his parentage. And then that is not like what the play is all about. That is actually happens outside of the play. So you want to make sure you focus the play on the investigation. Remember, the tragedy isn't that he did the things in the past, it's that he needn't have found out about it. So focus, make sure that your specific references are about the investigation and not only about the backstory to Oedipus. Okay, 14. Complexity is the target, and you should embrace complexity. I shouldn't be able to think of conflicting evidence from the text as I read your interpretation. This happens a lot with the Ignorance is Bliss essay, which is a fine essay. You could write that, get a C or whatever, maybe a B. The problem with that essay is that there's a lot of like conflicting subtext to the idea that Oedipus would have been blissful if he was ignorant. He would have failed as a king. People would have died. He may have been deposed. He might have had to leave as a failure. Everyone would have died. So it's just a little bit too simple, and it's just too easy for me to sit back here and find like obvious evidence for why he would not have been blissful in ignorance. So instead of like fighting with that tension, you should deal with it. I mean, the tragedy is that he needn't have found out, but because of who he was in society and this kind of character, he had to find out. So that's a pretty complex idea between fate, determinism, and choice. So try to find a more nuanced interpretation. All right, so let's take a look at some of the essays. So hopefully you notice that sample Z is just absolutely awful. It pretty much commits every possible sin. Look at the first paragraph, the intro. It has the title. We don't have the author. And instead of giving us like a meaning of the work as a whole, we have a repetition of the prompt. And then it just says, oh, it's a good example of that. Also, look at the conclusion. It praises the literature instead of giving us like a theme. Most of the topic sentences are just statements of like the plot. And whenever it does do analysis, it like doesn't really have any textual references to back it up. Sample Z is it's like a D, I would say. It's a D paper. Sample C is aptly named because it gets the grade of C. Notice that we have a bit of a summary of this plot, so be it. It is implicitly about the past, that's fine. But the last paragraph, clearly we have money cannot buy happiness. There is our theme. So we have a direct statement of theme. Notice that it's a cliche, and also notice that it's a little bit simplistic in the novel. Look at that gross first topic sentence right here. It gets a C, but it still commits this sin. What is being analyzed here in this topic sentence? This does not shape the essay. It does not a real thought. It is just a statement of something about the novel. In fact, there's nothing about this paragraph that's analytical at all. This is a person who paid attention in class and listened to the plot of the story. Again, totally gross topic sentence here in the second body paragraph. It is just a summary of something that happens in the story. There's no thought here. It is just a regurgitation of the plot. What the heck does his obsession with Daisy have to do with letting her drive a car? Like, is a man, like, think about it. Like, this is kind of comical. Is the author of this essay saying that only an obsessed man, a man obsessed with a woman, would allow her to drive his car? I mean, that's like a problematic point of view when you think about it. It's kind of ridiculous. And then this paragraph just falls. It's like just dies off here, more summary. And yeah, it's not inaccurate, but we really don't get anywhere with it. Here's that passive voice in the first sentence of the conclusion is shown by Gatsby's inability to let the past go. And then we have our actual analysis. And, this is mediocre at best. It's overly simplistic, but this analysis does follow just the regurgitated list of events of the story. I would say that this is a simplistic but accurate interpretation of the meaning of The Great Gatsby. That what made him great was, well, a more sophisticated take would be that the thing that made him great was also his greatest mistake. That he had this impossible dream to relive the past, and he would not let it go. But that greatness also led to his destruction. That would have maybe been a little bit more sophisticated. But anyway, A very simplistic interpretation. It comes in at the end. This essay was headed towards a D plus, but it wrote itself into a C by having just a little glimmer of analysis and prompt, you know, relatedness here at the very end. Sample G is an A paper. It has every topic sentence is clearly trying to make a claim. The first topic sentence of the first body paragraph suggests that he appears to be like a solid rock for the family. This is a claim. Notice that the claim like sort of suggests a little bit of irony here, that like things are not what they appear. This is immediately brought up here in the second body paragraph, and they make a claim about how his clinging to the past leads to his demise. Very similar to like the conclusion in this essay about Gatsby, but they make it in a topic sentence that needs to be proved. I highlighted in green the textual references. There's about 10 of them, which is a fair amount. And then this last paragraph uses contrast. It talks about other characters and shows how the contrast between those characters and the main character points out things about that character. And that is actually a pretty sophisticated point to show that contrast. Like you could show how Creon's like behavior like contrasts about Oedipus. That would be like an interesting thing here. They have a pretty decent point of analysis where they clearly talk about juxtaposition, which is how contrast reveals something. Yeah, all in all, it's one of those cliches. I don't like it. And we never get to any kind of like broader meaning of the work as a whole. It's all kind of implicit, which I don't like. And in particular, the thesis is insufficient in this essay here. It does make a claim that is relevant to the prompt, but it never gets to the meaning of the work as a whole. But in the conclusion, it kind of saves a little bit. Pain is inevitable, but misery is a choice. We all suffer pain in our past, but it's our choice to dwell on it or not. And that shows that sort of contrast, like the acceptance that bad things happen, but like we can choose to move on or not. That is a tension. That shows a little bit of contrast. That is a more sophisticated idea than like we had in the essay about the Great Gatsby. I would say that this paper is a very low A. Like I wouldn't say it's an A plus paper. I wish that the thesis had maybe a statement of organization and maybe like stated the theme. What I imagine is that the student had a glimmer of an idea to write about the Poisonwood Bible and sort of wrote themselves into an A by having very analytical topic sentences that were well proven with several points of textual reference, about 3 or 4 per paragraph. And then they sort of wrote themselves into an A by having a decent thought-provoking theme. I just wish that this theme was more explicitly iterated in the body paragraphs and in the thesis. But we are going to reward the student for what they did well. I believe they read the book at a high level, and they have a pretty strong understanding of what the meaning of this work was as a whole.